Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday the 13th. Yes, July 13th, 2018. I'm coming to you from a farm in Missouri. Have a little crop report. Want to get done. I watched this dog and pony show on Thursday. Peter Strzok testifies. I call it testifies fight with GOP critics at hearing. I mean, everything from when Louis Gohmert asked if he could, sit with a straight face basically and lie to his wife about Lisa Page. I just went crazy. I don't know how this helps Peter Strzok. I think he didn't want to testify. He wanted to answer the questions that made him look good, to explain his Trump-hating text, with I don't think anybody bought it. I don't think it helps him. I think he contradicted himself. I think he could put himself in big jeopardy with this. I think he's going to jail ultimately. And I think he's going to roll over on people and go to jail. I mean, Lisa Page ended up not testifying. I think she's going to roll over and or go to jail. We'll cut her time by rolling over. But he didn't have a – I don't think this helped. This is the public version of the hearings, and I don't see how this helped him at all. I think it's just a dog and pony show, and wait till the indictments fly. I don't understand – what this did. For him, maybe it might explain some of his hateful texts, like we are going to get him, like we the people, which I think is totally false. We, like we the FBI. But he says, oh, no, I'm not biased at all, which really is kind of goofy. Trump over in Europe, Trump claims tremendous progress and says NATO allies agreed to supporting, agreed to increase spending after emergency meeting. It says here that it got off to a rough start. You could say that is the understatement of the year. Got off to a rough start. He says there's tremendous progress and NATO is stronger now. I mean, he absolutely dressed down. Just dogged in about a 3 or 4 minute little tirade out in public that Germany's cutting a deal with Russia. They're not spending enough in terms of their NATO allotment. It's supposed to be 2% of GDP. And the U.S. is protecting Germany, who's doing a pipeline deal with the Russians. It's a Nord Stream 2 energy pipeline. He's just unbelievable. Germany is being protected from Russia by NATO, largely the U.S. A few countries are putting in their allotted 2%, like Poland and the U.K., and then they're cutting a deal with the people that we're protecting them from. Trump also over in the U.K., he backs Boris Johnson, who's likely going to be the prime minister. He's kind of a modern-day Winston Churchill. He hates Theresa May, who is the current prime minister. She is trying to orchestrate what's called a soft Brexit, which to me is a no Brexit. Trump's upset that he'll end up not really negotiating with the UK on trade. It'll be the EU. And so people are ticked off. They voted to get out of the EU. The monetary union. They voted to get out, and the people in charge don't want to get out. She says she does, but this is classic. They say they do, but they don't, and they don't want to get out. And basically, Donald Trump is backing Boris Johnson. It's quite a upheaval that all around the world, especially in Europe, the U.S. With Donald Trump being elected, the anti-incumbent, the anti-deep state candidates are making headway because a lot of people are sick of what the deep state is doing. And now they're getting out in the open about, the one world government, the Luciferian, the open borders, just unbelievable. Something I wanted to bring up here, because I used to work at AT&T, is the Justice Department. The Justice Department basically it is appealing the Time Warner AT&T merger. A couple of thoughts on that. It didn't say this in the story, but the Justice Department argues that the combined company would decrease competition and raise prices, probably. But I wonder if, and they would never say this, and I don't have any data for this, but I wonder if they're thinking that this will make CNN much stronger. I mean, the ratings are imploding. The ratings are not doing well at all at CNN. Also MSNBC. And CNN is not a cheap operation. It's a very. I worked at ABC and I worked at CNN, and I've been to all the networks, and I got the only people that rival them in terms of technology and spending, probably NBC, but CBS is doesn't spend much. ABC is not much of a news operation, I think, and but they spend a lot of money. CNN spends a lot of money. MSNBC spends a lot of money, and they're not doing well. CNN, and this is a title from Infowars. CNN and MSNBC, they're getting clobbered in the ratings, and they're not cheap operations. The talent's expensive, the real estate's expensive, the equipment is expensive, the tech is expensive, and they need much better ratings to justify the money they're spending. I mean, some of these anchors, some of the primetime anchors are. I think Anderson Cooper, when I was there in '08, was making $7 million a year. I don't know if he ever won. He's never won quarter to quarter. I don't think he's ever won year over year. He's never won. So, which tells me that these are basically propaganda machines. They don't care about making money. They hired Jeff Zucker, who runs CNN, even though the ratings are imploding. They hired him for another year. And it's all about propaganda. Meanwhile, I told you this about Hillary Clinton, that if she was elected, she said to Chris Wallace in her only major interview that there are limits to the First Amendment and limits to the Second Amendment, and there are limits to the First, too. And what is she out doing? She's out, Hillary Clinton and the government officials are calling for the end of InfoWars. Listen, InfoWars isn't perfect, but they have the right to free speech, and they are a news organization, and they actually break stories. Do I agree with everything InfoWars does? No. I don't agree with everything that anybody does, but InfoWars is pretty good operation. You may or may not like the people there. You may not like Alex Jones, but it's a pretty good operation. And they got, 5 or 6 million people that watch it. That's the problem. The problem is they don't like what they're saying. And here we have, MSM and Clinton, call InfoWars fake news, but not ABC, CBS, CNN, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, any of these MSNBC. They're not fake news at all. They're propaganda. I've been pointing this out to you for I don't know how long about how they're really just turned into propaganda, and the alternative media is turning into the real media. There are, and as I pointed out to you, her quote was, there are limits to the Second Amendment, and there are limits to the First. Really, there are limits to your freedom of speech, your freedom of religion, your freedom to assembly. There are limits. That's your world. That's the purple revolution, New World Order, Luciferian, packed full of pedophilia world that you want to live in, that you want us to live in? I don't think so. I wanted to come up to the economy while all this other stuff is going on, and really I think the real thing is the economy is hitting the skids. They're telling you it's not hitting the skids, but I'm telling you it is hitting the skids, and this is the headline. This is a very scary scenario. Restructuring legend warns of coming perfect storm. This is Jim Millstream, and Jim Millstream is talking about the convergence of so many negatives, a perfect storm. One of the big things he brought up was record poor quality debt, record amount of debt, and record poor quality debt, corporate junk, just not very well. This is a Bloomberg and Zero Hedge story they put together. Another thing that Gregory Mannarino, my friend at TradersChoice.net, has been talking about. Here is the yield curve, and if you can make sense of this, this is the Fed funds rate, and this is the 2, and the 10, this is the 5, this is the 10, and the 30. If you look here, the curve is flattening. It's almost flat. It's only 10 basis points, 0.1% between the 10-year Treasury and the 30-year Treasury. This is a terrible sign for a coming doom, coming problems, coming big problems. And every time the yield curve flattens and or inverts, almost every single time, we get huge problems in the financial markets. Now, this is going to be worse this time because the problems are much worse. Gregory Mannarino talks about $14 trillion debt that consumers have. Delinquencies are going up. Mannarino pointed out to me, he says, hey, they never stopped QE. Their Federal Reserve is buying $1.8 billion in mortgage bonds and aren't selling them. Here's another little chart that's kind of instructive if you can look at this. I'm out in the sun, so it's a little bit hard for me to see. But here is the, this is 2000, and this is 2008, the last of and here we are now. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that, boy, that is looking just like the other ones. And the world is also in record debt, $247 trillion now in global debt. In global debt. And big people, are warning about the debt, about the reset. It's going to be a debt reset. Another thing you're saying, and this has been going on for a couple of years, and why China is spending money putting this on billboards. I had this sent to me a couple of years ago first, but there's still, every so often you're seeing this billboard out there, and it is about gold. It is about, there's a gold coin and the RMB and, the yuan being gold-backed, and they're talking about gold-backed currency, and they're advertising this on billboards in China. And boy, if that's not a tell, I don't know what is. I just think that that's a problem. That's a problem that they're kind of saying that we're going to take care of, and we're going to take care of it with gold. And I think if the Chinese are worried about a currency and backing a currency with something instead of like it is all over the world, the dollar is backed by nothing. By our Defense Department and GDP, the RMB, the yuan is really backed by nothing. The euro is backed by nothing. The real is backed by more nothing. And I don't know, what would they do? Would you buy into an SDR currency, a basket of currencies backed by nothing? Or would they have to go straight to some sort of a gold back, a commodity back? I think Donald Trump's going to back the dollar with gold and wheat, grains, and oil. That's what I think ultimately. Because we're going to be the world net oil exporter pretty soon. He opened up ANWR. The weather has to cooperate with the crops, which is, I am in a farm in Missouri, and I'm in the middle of a cornfield here, and it may look good, but some corn, it looks fantastic. It's award-winning. And other corn doesn't look so good. Here is a corn. It's tossing out, so it's about grown as big as it's going to be, and they need rain here bad. And this is what the ear looks like. I mean, can that make some yield? Yeah, it'll make some yield. Will it get a little bigger? Maybe a little bigger, yeah, but it need rain bad right now. Now, other corn is 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall. This is not that tall, but it needs rain. The corn is not very well, formed very well, and it's been dry here in Missouri. But the drought monitor has a different story. The drought monitor shows, over here in the Southwest, also pretty much drought in Texas. Here in Missouri, some drought. This is in Missouri, some pretty bad drought, but out here is horrible. Dry conditions here. Out east looks pretty good. When I was on my way out here from North Carolina, it was just gorgeous in Tennessee. In Kentucky and Illinois. It was stunning, actually. Award-winning crops. Huge, beautiful corn, beans, gorgeous. Other places here in Missouri, in this particular area, need rain bad. Out west, really need rain bad, especially in the Four Corners area, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. It's terrible. California is dry, but it's been worse. I think it's going to be a fairly good production year, but there's no sign of the drought breaking, particularly out west. And here in the Midwest, there are signs of it in some places getting worse. So with that, this is my weekly news wrap-up from the farm. I think it's going to be okay. It's crop season. I think Donald Trump's done great overseas. He also is going to meet with Vladimir Putin, which I think is smart. I think he ought to be at least on speaking terms with nuclear-armed countries, that have as many nukes as you. I think that, and I think that Donald Trump has got his work cut out for him in the New World Order and the people that took bribes from Iran. And all that. I think there are lots of things going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. I did talk to Dave Janda. He's got some interesting thoughts about things going on behind the scenes, which I'm not going to share because he didn't tell me I could. But there's a lot going on that you're not really seeing. Donald Trump, what you are seeing over in Europe is masterful politicking, blunt to the point and yet honest, which I think's fantastic. And I've always said, people know the truth when they hear it. And even in the UK, they're supposed to have these big protests for Donald Trump, with the Donald Trump and the baby diaper balloon, and they just didn't show up. People aren't protesting him. I think they're sick of Theresa May and the ruling class and all the immigration and the Sharia law and the massive amounts of Muslim immigration and the lawlessness and the crime and the rapes and the pedophile groups over there. And I think the people in Europe and in the UK are getting sick of it. And Donald Trump just reminds them that, hey, wow, something actually can be done. So that's the way I see it. I'm coming to you from a farm in Missouri. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments and your donations. That helps us out. I just want to let you know I really appreciate everything. I've had trouble with my emails. I've had a lot of bounce backs from certain people, especially with Gmail accounts, but they can bounce back from other things, other emails. That's another thing. Some get put in the spam file, but I do want you to know I thank everybody that gives a donation. And listen, I want you to be informed. I don't want you to be fearful, which is why I say fear not. And I want you to be informed so you can plan, and don't let fear rob you of your confidence, of your ability to do something, and don't let fear rob you of your faith. So with that, I say, fear not. Protect yourself mentally, physically, above all, spiritually, fear not. God the Father and His Son, Jesus Christ, are firmly in control.